Market hog class number 1. Entry number 1 is a moderate framed hog that certainly has some athleticism. I appreciate that depth of width and muscle shape up over the top of the animal. In addition, it's really big and bold and that muscle pattern up over the shoulder. I might change them just a little bit there, give it a little more width and natural thickness from behind, give some more muscle shape proportionally throughout all proportions of that ham. But I think in general, a fairly sound structured, complete type of a market hog that has a lot of muscle pattern and definition at this stage of the game. Entry number 2, I think once again is maybe a little shorter bodied and quicker and earlier in the maturity pattern, but a hog that's really wide up in that muscle shape and definition up over that top and carries that dimension down a thicker and fuller ham in comparison to the other contemporary in that class. Ideally, I might elevate this one with a little more extension up through that head and that neck and give it just a little more flexibility. This hog wants to be a little bit shorter striding up through that shoulder and the front 1/3 of its body, but certainly an excellent pig, I think, and both of them within this class has done a great job there for those exhibitors as well. Thank you. Market class 2, entry number 3, I think once again is a more compact type of a market animal. I really appreciate the muscle pattern up over the top of this hog and really carries that greater dimension of muscle shape and thickness through all proportions of that hind quarter as well, and certainly gives us more rump shape and ham shape and definition. The pig too is big and bold in the front shoulder, carries a big old wide forehead and gives us just a lot more stoutness there, maybe in comparison to those contemporaries. Entry number 4 within the second class, I think once again maybe follows that type and kind as entry number 3. Gives us some thickness and stoutness in the front 1/3 from the shoulder blades and carries that dimension on back to a wide and thick type of a back within that entry. I would change this hog as it moves away from me on the rear legs. Wants to be a little more sloped to the rump and not quite as sound and square on from there from stifle to hock and from hock to the ground. In addition, doesn't quite give us as much muscle mass and definition to that lower inner portion of that ham in compared to the ones placed ahead of it within that class. Entry number 5 within the second class, I think once again is a moderately designed type of an entry, big and thick. We appreciate that depth of body and bacon and natural thickness that the hog has. We appreciate that chest and thickness coming towards me from that standpoint. Ideally, I need to change this pig on the structure as it goes away from me. Wants to track narrow based and doesn't have as much natural meat animal shape and definition that we saw within those entries that place maybe higher in that class today, but an excellent hog. I think that's got a lot of good quality there to him. It just pushed a little more condition compared to muscle mass today, and it needs to be sounder in structure to move up higher in the class. Class number 3 of the market hogs, we start off with exhibitor number 6. I think once again a decent quality hog that gives us a good amount of athleticism, I think with a decent amount of shape and advantage to that. I think ideally the pounds is maybe the pounds light entry within that class and needs a little more time, I think, to develop some more muscle mass and definition, specifically through all proportions of that ham. Is adequate there in that muscle shape up over that top line. I would like to maybe change that hog just a little bit there from a structural standpoint on those rear legs, but a decent project, I think, that's got some more time to still develop a little more muscle and stoutness and thickness as time goes on. Lot or exhibitor number 7, I think once again the black hog gives us a decent amount of thickness of muscle shape over that top line, big and thick in that muscle pattern up over the front shoulders and carries that dimension on back, being deep within that depth of body and has an adequate amount of width of base as it goes away from me from a structural standpoint. A decent amount of muscle shape through all proportions of that ham in comparison to maybe the other pig that placed that was in higher in that class. Certainly a good combination pair of pigs within the grouping. A good quality hog, I think, that's going to hang an excellent carcass. This one appears to be maybe a little more moderate in that frame size in comparison to maybe a couple of the other entries in this class, but certainly an excellent hog that's got a good amount of muscle and thickness. I might make it just a notch bigger in its kind just for a little bit more leanness if I can, specifically up front. Exhibitor number 8, I think, is the pounds heavy hog within that class. The spotted up pig, once again, is really athletic and sound within motion. Gives us a good amount of thickness and stoutness up over that rounded type of a top. In addition to, gives us a good amount of power from behind. And we appreciate that muscle mass and definition this hog possesses. I think being the pounds heavier pig is going to have more pounds of edible product. Certainly, like I said, it's very athletic, really correct in its pattern and its design. Its too is laid in and smoother in the front shoulders and carries that dimension on back from that standpoint. Ideally, it could be a little bit wider base, maybe in comparison to another hog or two within this class. But to me, this is the pounds heavy hog that best combines some muscle and some trimness at the same time in a complete package. Class number 4 starts off with lot number 9. I think once again the ginger spotted market hog is by far our most athletic one within all of our classes. We appreciate that soundness of structure, can really get out there and move on this pig. I think ideally maybe just could be a little bit thicker up over that top line and from behind, but certainly appreciate, like I said, the structure, the soundness and levelness. The pig might need just a little more time to develop some more flesh to be heavier in that muscle pattern, but an excellent hog, very complete, and has done a great job. Entry number 10, I think the spotted up pig is by far your heavier muscle pig within that pairing. Super thick up over that top and really carries a greater dimension of muscle expression down that top line. I appreciate that depth of body and carries that depth clear through all proportions of that flank. And when it gets behind this hog, you admire this pig as certainly as wide based and wide tracking. Gives us a ton of thickness and stoutness there from that definition as well. Ideally, I might make it just a nickel more flexible with how it wants to handle itself off of those rear legs from a structural standpoint, but certainly we're here to evaluate the animal more for muscle and trimness today. Certainly this is that pounds heavy combination pig with a little more muscle mass. For selection of your champion market hog, I think it gets a little more competitive between our heavier hogs for consideration for the overall champion. Lot number 10 or entry 10, I think once again is the one that excels towards the top with just a little more natural thickness and stoutness there and muscle mass and definition. I appreciate that width and that power of muscle shape through that rump. Ideally, it maybe isn't as flexible and sound as some other entries that we have within that drive, but certainly this pig definitely gives us the most amount of muscle shape and definition for a market hog type of a situation. Our reserve champion is going to be entry number 8 in our second heavy class. Once again, it could be class number 3. The pig just has a ton of natural thickness over that top line. This one, in compared to our champion, is sounder within structure and within motion. Ideally, though, I would like to make it just a little bit stouter in that bone work and make it wider base. So it gives us a little more muscle shape specifically in that lower portion of that ham. But these two hogs are our pounds heavy pigs that give us the most amount of muscle mass and definition today. Our honorable mention market hog will be our second one in class number 3, entry number 7. The black slightly belted hog is the combination pig of a good amount of thickness and stoutness, and we really appreciate that width of base this hog has. It carries a nice thickness down that top line as well. I would like to make it maybe just a notch bigger in its kind and as well, make it bigger so we can get a little more pounds and be a little bit naturally leaner in its overall condition, but certainly a good combination pig that we appreciate as well for having a lot of stoutness coming towards you and going away. An excellent hog to be third for honorable mention.